as for the ACCR, I haven't seen a more hostile witness in all my time chairing. You've been evasive, you've been hostile, you've been rude, and I don't thank you for your appearance here. And I don't
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you enjoy your protest on the weekend.
I don't think any reputable company. I don't. No. Please be quiet. Silence. I'm speaking as chairman. I don't think that any reputable company
George,
should
this is a complete
no, no,
misuse
no.
of your
I don't think
position.
any reputable company should engage your services.
Mate.
You're out of line in my committee.
George, you just spent
It doesn't fly in the Senate either.
session
No.
berating a witness. All right, mate.
Well,
You can't.
I ended
You
it
can't
because
do
that is the
You
first
can't
time
do
I have
that.
done that because that witness was extremely hostile
No, they
and rude
weren't,
to
mate.
people.
They
They
were
were.
not.
They were indeed.
And I
Good
wait,
questions
okay?
now. I'll be fair. When I introduce you for questions, you want me to call you a climate alarmist and an extreme green. I will call you a coal job killer before I introduce you. You want me to do that?
Let's not split hairs. Mr. Gocher, you were denigrating CCS as a technology, as always on the horizon. You seem to push batteries as an alternative. What makes you think it's any closer technology than CCS or hydrogen, for that matter? Aren't they both, or aren't they all leading edge or bleeding edge technologies currently?
Well, I guess if you look at the results from Gorgon that were published last week, it would suggest that CCS comes with a lot of problems. They certainly haven't captured as much CO2 as they were supposed to under the regulations agreed with the WA EPA. Batteries are already playing a role in the NEM. So I don't know that they are, new age batteries are leading edge, but there are existing batteries in the NEM that are providing doing an enormous role, to be honest. And we're not just talking about batteries in electricity either. You're talking about batteries in whether it's motor vehicles or trucks or light vehicles. So there's a multiple range of uses for batteries.
So clearly, industrial use isn't one of them. How long would Australia's largest battery run an aluminium smelter, for example?
That's not what they're designed to do, Mr. Van. I think you know that, and it's a disingenuous question.
So, but SMRs would be able to do that, and
Sure.
them. So
can you point to an existing example of an SMR globally, or?
Sorry?
Can you point to an example of an SMR globally?
There's one being built in Utah currently.
There's one being built, right? Okay. Well, then it's hard to assess how useful it is if it's just being built.
Worldwide nuclear technology is a very useful dispatchable power that comes with zero emissions.
Mm.
So, given that we export aluminium as well as use it here ourselves, why would you want to back technologies that don't allow us to smelt and export aluminium?
You don't actually need. You can make aluminium emissions free. I think you're aware of that, right? Using hydro, which we do in Tasmania.
So where are we going to get the extra hydro from, given Australia's?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be hydro, but you can. There are alternatives to produce aluminium without using coal or nuclear.
Such as?
You can use renewable energy to produce green hydrogen.
Well, why, if that's the case, why aren't our current smelters, investing in that?
I've asked Rio Tinto that exact same question, Mr. Van. I've asked Rio Tinto that exact same question.
So one would suggest that it's not economically viable.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Would you take on notice then your mathematics and your arithmetic on showing us how that might be done?
Sure. There's actually a paper I can point you to right now, Mr. Van. If you just Google IEFA, they've done a report about the decarbonisation of the Tomago smelter in the Hunter Valley.
Okay, if you'd provide that on notice to the committee.
Happy to. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think the answer you were looking for before is 8 minutes is the how long a battery would run a cell.
It's such a disingenuous point. Batteries aren't designed to do that, Mr. Ben.
It's not what they're designed for.
All you've done is talk about, you're completely off topic of the terms of reference. You haven't addressed how these current conditions, these ideological beliefs that you follow, are affecting Australia's export industries. You're silent on that. You're so disingenuous yourself that you're using this committee to push an ideological point as opposed to participating in an inquiry with genuine terms of reference.
Excuse me, Chair, we're not here to attack our witnesses personally. I don't think we can but we're not here to cast aspersions on their intentions or otherwise. I think Senator Van had a good go with
I'm just trying to pull the witness back to the terms of reference.
No, I think you are actually casting aspersions on their intent, Senator Van. I don't think that is behaving of this committee.
I'm going to pull. Well, thanks very much, Deputy Chair. I'm going to pull it up anyway because it's hit 12:50.
Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, can I get a chance to ask a question, please?
Make it very quick, Jared. One question if we can.
Okay, so my question is, we always talk about reducing emissions, but ultimately reducing emissions are a means to an end. Do the witnesses know what the temperature will be by 2030 and 2050 if we reduce emissions by 26% by 2030 and go to net zero by 2050?
I'm happy to take that.
Yes, thank you.
What the temperature will be in 2030 is dependent on what all global actors do, Mr. Rennick. I think you're aware of that, right?
Yeah, I am aware of that. So let's say everyone meets their Paris targets agreements. What will be the temperature by 2030?
Well, the science suggests that if existing targets are what plays out over the next out to 2050, then we're looking at more than 3 degrees of warming by the middle of the century. That's what the science says.
Okay, and what's the science say the temperature will be by 2030?
Well, we're already at 1.1 degrees of warming. I suspect it'll be somewhere near 1.5 degrees.
1.1 degrees of warming from when?
From pre-industrial levels.
Pre-industrial levels. So which year exactly?
The mid-19th century is pre-industrial.
Right. Okay. So what will the temperature be by 2030?
If you look at the current science, it suggests somewhere in the range of 1.4 to 1.6 degrees above pre-industrial.
So what the average temperature is now, say about 15 degrees, so you're saying the average temperature of the Earth by 2030 will be 16.5 degrees if we don't get this right?
That's not how it works, sadly. It's not just adding 1.1 degrees to every day of temperature. The 1.1 degree rise is over the course of a year across the globe. And what you tend to see is heat extremes at the end. So instead of a 40-degree day in summer, you get a 45-degree day. In winter, instead of getting a 12-degree day, you might get a 15-degree day. So it's not a uniform 1.1 degree add to the temperature. That's not how it works, and you're well aware of that.
But the whole Paris Agreement is based on limiting temperature increase rather than volatility of the weather, isn't it?
Well,
so shouldn't it really be
the science suggests that the increased warming contributes to more extreme weather.
But it doesn't make the average temperature hotter.
Of course it does.
Okay, so it's both. It's going to be more extreme and hotter?
Correct.
Yes.
Right, by 1.5 degrees.
I've just explained what that means in terms of extreme temperatures, Mr. Rank, but if you want a science lesson, I can direct you towards any number of climate scientists.
I'm just trying to work out what the benchmark is for 2030, right? Because all these emissions are a means to an end, and we need to have a benchmark by 2030, and you're saying the benchmark is 1.5 degrees. So we've got a limit. If we don't meet Paris, the temperature of the Earth, average temperature of the Earth's atmosphere is going to be 1.5 degrees higher. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends on a whole bunch of variable factors, like what other countries do in that 10 years to 2030.
but Australia's also included. So my question is, why should we abolish thermal coal mining but not yet reduce consumption from people who live in inner cities? I mean, why don't we say to people who live in inner cities, you can't drive your car to work 2 days a week? I mean, why is it that people in the regions, in the mining regions, are expected to carry job losses when people in the city, there's no emphasis on them to reduce their consumption?
Mr. Rennick, if you're pushing public transport as a policy option, I'm all here for it, mate.
Yeah, so am I, but that's rarely ever discussed in these, ways to reduce emissions.
Well, certainly is if you look at any sort of transport.
But both myself and the chair, Mr. Christensen, are both advocating for an infrastructure bank. Unfortunately, we have no control over that because the Keating Labor government outsourced responsibility for monetary policy to the RBA. But that's a discussion for another day. But I just want to know what the clear benchmark is for 2030 so that we can hold all this money we're spending on renewables
point of order,
to account.
As fun as it is to listen to Senator Rennick learn the basics of climate science, we are running behind as a committee.
We are running.
Sorry, Senator Steele, John. But could you not make reflections and imputations on other senators? And if you ever want to debate climate science,
Senator Rennick, I'm going to get onto that in a minute, but I will call it up. I will have to call it up.
Sorry, can I just clarify one point that Senator Van said? As we said before, this isn't ideological; it's an economic market-based decision.
I'm sorry, I'm really going to have to pull it up because we are behind. Can you please provide that to us in writing? I'm happy for you to clarify, but we are, because we've had the next witnesses waiting for 20 minutes now. So if there's any additional information, including what you're saying, and I'm sorry I'm going to have to cut you off, please provide it to us by Wednesday, the 11th of August. You're going to be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence. You will have an opportunity to request corrections to transcription errors. I don't normally do this as a chairman, but I do thank the witnesses from Ethical Partners Funds Management. As for the ACCR, I haven't seen a more hostile witness in all my time chairing. You've been evasive, you've been hostile, you've been rude, and I don't thank you for your appearance here. And I don't
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you enjoy your protest on the week.
I don't think any reputable company. No. Please be quiet. Silence. I'm speaking as chairman. I don't think that any reputable company
George,
should
this is a complete
No. I don't think any reputable company should engage your services.
Mate,
you're out of order, Senator Steele John. You're out of order. You're out of order, Senator Steele John. And I'm going to ask the Secretariat. I'm going to ask the Secretariat to silence Mr. Steele John.
It is not your role to berate the witness.
And please,
it's not your role, Steele John, to impinge on the reputations of other
that is exactly
committee members.
I'm now before we go to our next witnesses.
Chair, can we just finish this now, please? Chair, just finish up.
We are finishing it. We've finished with the witnesses that we have. We'll move on to the next witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to say to Senator Steele John, at the beginning of every single comment that you have made, you've disparaged this committee, and it will stop now. You disparage the committee once more, and I will not take any further questions from you. So please stop that behaviour. Might fly in the Senate, it's not flying in my committee.
You just spent
it doesn't fly in the Senate either.
Session
berating
a witness. All right, mate.
Well,
you can't,
I ended
you can't
it because
do
that is the first time I have done that, because that witness was extremely hostile.
No, they
and
weren't,
rude to
mate.
people. They were indeed.
And I will contend to you,
that is your
Chairman,
opinion.
that nothing I have said
opinion.
In the framing of my question goes any further than any of the political framings that Senator Van has placed around his question. All right.
Okay.
Let's just apply this fairly. Okay.
Now, I'll be fair. When I introduce you for questions, you want me to call you a climate alarmist and an extreme green. I don't want to do that.
I'm
but if you're going to
an
disparage
extreme
the
green.
committee,
Please
I will do that.
Declare me an extreme green.
I will call you a coal job killer before I introduce you. You want me to do that? And
Go
please,
ahead,
I won't
buddy.
do it. I won't do
Buddy.
it. But don't disparage this committee.